Okay, looks like we're good. We are live, I believe, and if not, we'll deal with it later. Hi, everyone. We are so excited to welcome you to day one of Health Equity Week of Action. I'm going to share my screen here in just a moment, but before I do that, I would just like to invite us all to take a deep breath. We're here together. This is a very special and unique moment that we get to share, especially with all that's happening in the world. So I wanted to share a quick poem with everyone that will be our grounding message for the evening. We'll begin many of our sessions with a grounding moment. So please feel free to, while I'm speaking, if you'd like to share your name and where you're tuning in from and your pronouns in the chat, we'd love to see that. Okay. This is called For Longing, and it's in the book To Bless the Space Between Us by John Donahue. Blessed be the longing that brought you here and quickens your soul with wonder. May you have the courage to listen to the voice of desire that disturbs you when you have settled for something safe. May you have the wisdom to enter generously into your own unease, to discover the new direction your longing wants you to take. May the forms of your belonging in love, creativity, and friendship be equal to the grandeur and the call of your soul. May the one you long for you. May your dreams gradually reveal the destination of your desire. May a secret providence guide your thought and nurture your feelings. May your mind inhabit your life with the sureness with which your body inhabits the world. May your heart never be haunted by ghost structures of old damage. May you come to accept your longing as divine urgency. And may you know the urgency with which your God longs for you. I want to be clear when I say God in the relation to this poem, that looks different for all of us. This practice of urgency, this practice of desire, this practice of longing that we're here to be in together today is beautiful and unique to each of our lived experiences, but hope that you enjoyed that. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen with you as we get started. Okay. Get in presentation mode. My friends, welcome again to Health Equity Week of Action. This is our opening plenary this evening, and we are so happy to be with you. The theme for our first day is the House of Medicine and Moral Imagination. And what we're looking to do together is to reimagine what trust and what restoring justice can look like. We have intentionally chosen the themes of our week to respond to the socio-political time that we are living in. This landscape demands a lot from us, and we want to peer into that demand together. We couldn't be more grateful to be with you. I am so excited to be co-hosting with our incredible national president. I'm Danya, and I'm serving this year as your Legislative Affairs Director, and I have made a home for myself here at AMSA and have loved every single moment for the past 2 years now. Nikita.
Yes, absolutely. It's lovely to see everyone's faces and everyone's screens in this Zoom call. My name is Nikita Balaji, and I'm currently serving as AMSA's national president. And it has been such an honor and a joy to support Danya and the work of all of our board of trustees, our national leadership, and all of our dedicated staff in making AMSA's Health Equity Week of Action possible. We have been working quietly over the past few months to build out our vision for this week. And as we have been in conversation about equity and justice within medicine and within this world, we have been really acutely aware of the context and the time in which we hold this week of action. When we as students look out into this world and into the halls of our hospitals and into our very classrooms, we see the ways in which scholarly inquiry or dialogue or community and awareness around equity and justice is falling under attack. And we see the capitulation of institutions that we have trusted or have sought to trust to safeguard those most dear values of our profession. And as we see that, AMSA, I think, has really tried to approach this week with an intention to safeguard a space for students, for colleagues, for activists and advocates all over to come together from any stage of training and any background to participate in this week of action. And so I'm so honored to welcome you all into this opening plenary session for our Health Equity Week of Action.
Thank you so much, Nikita. So sweet. So as we enter into this space and we ask ourselves, why HEWA and why now? I think Nikita just spoke to this so beautifully. But Health Equity Week of Action has been something we have done for quite some time. It is always the time for equity. Equity does not sleep. Equity demands our attention always. But specifically in the time that we're living in right now, when threats to threats to human rights in every which way of its forms are on the line, it now feels so powerful and important to frame our gatherings and our weeks of action around these topics. Here at AMSA, we refuse a medicine, a body of medicine, a practice of medicine that is not rooted in care. One that dictates worthiness based upon, random judgments. I see a hand raised. Do we have a hand raised? Nisha? Maybe that was an accident. Thanks, honey. Feel free to ask a question, but one that might deny someone's inherent wholeness. We've always believed in human rights here at AMSA, but now it's so important that we reorient how we approach our advocacy, and we understand that health is a human right. This is not a privilege that we are granting to those who deserve access and those who do not. We don't get to make those decisions. We have to believe, as we believe that, we have to believe that health is multidimensional, right? This is, we say here, a living tapestry with which there's a shared sense of belonging and safety. This tapestry means that lived experience looks different. Access looks different. And inherently, for a body of medicine to truly identify with the people in which it serves, it has to be as multidimensional as that community, as these communities. I see some people coming in. Okay, Nisha's hand's still raised. One of my favorite things that we've been talking about here at AMSA lately too is that human rights is a non-partisan. Okay, dear, I'm gonna mute you, I think, but I love the excitement. Okay, nope, you're already muted. All right. That human rights is a nonpartisan issue. My friends, nor at HEWA, nor in our programming at large, are we speaking about parties, Republican or Democrat. What we're speaking about here is human rights. That issue is nonpartisan. That issue is rooted in uplifting all, regardless of background. And like we mentioned, equity does not discriminate. Equity should not discriminate. And that's why, in the time that we're living in, this week of action is so important to us. So we wanted to begin our evening with a special address from Senator Sanders. This video is very special to us, so we're playing it here for you. Let me know if you can hear once I
Let me thank the American Medical Student Association for allowing me to say a few words to you today. And let me congratulate you on your choice of profession. The work that you are doing is enormously important. You are saving lives, you are easing human suffering, you are extending longevity. And there is nothing, to my mind, more important than that. Being a doctor is not easy work, as you well know, but you all have on your shoulders an additional responsibility. Not only do you want to be great doctors, but I think many of you understand that our current healthcare system is so broken, so dysfunctional, and so cruel that in order for you to do the jobs that in which our life expectancy
Did the video lapse for you guys? That's okay. So let's try one more thing, and if it lapses, that's okay, and we'll just continue.
is much
Now,
lower,
can you hear it?
and our infant mortality rate is much higher than virtually every major country on earth. It is a system in which some 500,000 people go bankrupt every year because of medically related debt. It is a system in which large parts of our country are medically underserved, where rural hospitals are being shut down, and where people, even with decent insurance, have to travel hours in order to find a doctor. It is a system in which, despite our huge expenditures, we don't have enough doctors, nurses, dentists, mental health professionals, or pharmacists. It is a system in which young people like you are graduating medical school hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, which I should tell you, in my view, is pretty crazy. The truth is that we have a healthcare system in America that is doing extraordinarily well for the people who own the system. Meanwhile, as the CEOs of big drug companies and health insurance companies make exorbitant compensation packages, our healthcare system is failing patients, and it is failing doctors as well. That is the bad news, and it is very bad news. But here is the good news. And the good news is all of you. As medical students, interns, residents, and as practicing physicians, I am confident that you will not only do a great job in providing outstanding care for your patients, but you will fight to make the American healthcare system something that serves the needs of all of our people and makes us all proud as Americans.
Okay. Hopefully we all heard all of that. I was following the comments in the chat. It's a very inspiring message, serving as a moral compass for us.
All right. So, as we have reflected on, some of Senator Sanders' observations, I feel that, many of his words really ring true. I think that for a lot of us who care deeply about health justice, we've likely seen the news about cuts to federal health care in the wake of H.R. 1, the ways in which the insurance status of the valued people of our country are treated as disposable and as less than. And so, I think that Senator Sanders' reflections are really poignant because as a lot of students think about entering into the field of medicine, we're not just tasked with training to be truly excellent clinicians. We're not just tasked to pass our boards and to pass our exams, but we're confronted with a system that is actively perpetuating harm. And we're confronted with a system that treats the basic right, the basic human right to health as a premium luxury that only few can afford. And the way that the system is structured isn't accidental. It betrays a lack of political will to actualize the fundamental human rights that we all have entered into this field with a firm belief in. And so this segues us really, perfectly into AMSA's vision and our socio-political commitment. And those commitments stem from a question that we ask ourselves and that we'll continue to ask ourselves over the course of this week. But that question is, what is the future of healthcare that we would like to come to fruition? Because we understand that our current system is broken in a deep way, and we, as the future of healthcare, as the newest members of our profession, we not only have the right to demand more from our profession and from our field, but we also have the responsibility to ask that question. And so as we ask this question together in community with each other over the course of this week, I'd like to offer a couple of North Stars and guiding lights in how AMSA has kind of approached the answer to this question over our storied history. And we clearly state that we wish to see a world in which healthcare is accessible, medicine is affordable, and systems directly support the diversity that we see around us. And in essence, we believe that we need to see a system in which all care for all people is a sentiment that's truly actualized and embodied by our system. So these are a couple of questions that we'll continue returning back to over the course of this week, but these are a couple of our commitments that we've made to ourselves as an organization. And so this brings us into the history of AMSA, because, as Donia and I have been talking a little bit about the ways in which AMSA has crafted Health Equity Week of Action in a direct response to what we're seeing in the world around us in the time that we find ourselves acutely in, we thought that it would be really fitting to connect the dots between our orientation to today to how we historically came about. So that leads us into our next slide. So AMSA in the beginning. There's a lot of text on this slide, but ultimately, I think the thing to take away from this slide is that from the 1950s to the late 1960s, AMSA, was then known as the Student American Medical Association. And we were born to become AMSA after medical student leadership at that time found themselves at an ideological crossroads. This was an era and a period in our history marked by the Vietnam War and by the Civil Rights Movement. And as medical student leadership within the Student American Medical Association looked out into the world and specifically looked to physicians who were in leadership and in power at that time, they saw a lack of moral fortitude and a lack of political conviction and moral conviction, and they decided to cut ties from that movement, holding their own, ideals of justice and equity at the forefront, and they forged their independence as a student-run and student-led organization. And so AMSA today, we continue to be student-run and student-led, and we continue to find ourselves built on the ideological backbone of medical student leaders from that time.
Yes, thank you so much, Nikita. I love hearing about our history because I think it just so well equips us to talk about where we are right now and why we are reorienting our advocacy here as an organization. I think when I first learned that we were born out of an effort that said, I don't identify with the type of medicine that you are asking me to inherit, right? You are asking me to enter in a field that I have long dreamed of living, or maybe you pivoted, that's okay too in your life, but you have a dream. You have a dream to care for others. You have a dream to place that white coat on your back and to say, I have an oath to do no harm among the many other oaths that we give. And to know that we are entering into a system that is able to treat others the way that we are treating them now and that they were then. And for a group of students to say, I can't identify with that. Not only can I not identify with that, but I'll create a group that I can identify with and that I can fight with. And that to me is so inspiring and feels like where we're at right now as well as we reorient. So that being said, I keep using the word reorienting, and I want to be very clear. We have always centered advocacy at AMSA. You, our membership, you, our national leaders, our board, our staff, everyone has worked so hard over the course of our entire arc to place advocacy at the forefront. But now, in the time that we're living in, there is more that we feel is demanded of us. A time to be more radicalized, a time to be more clear, a time to ensure that others feel that they can find what they're looking for, a place just like they did back in the 1950s that said, this doesn't feel right, and I want to be around other people who feel the same. That was, if you will, the origin point of what we've now dubbed Advocacy in Action, which is a renaming of our current advocacy infrastructure. I'm going to let Nikita here shortly share a little bit about that, conception moment. But what's really special to us about this is using the imagery of a lighthouse. You might have heard us speak about this before. and I apologize, but you will have to again. But this lighthouse is chosen very intentionally because the world always, and especially now, can be extremely frightening. It can also be and is very joyful. They're both, and many multitudes exist at the same time. But whether those waters are still or whether they are rocky, a lighthouse stands firm. It shines its light, whether, well, it doesn't really need it in the light, but especially in times that feel dark, and it guides people to shore. And at times we don't even know that the shore is there, right? We don't know where the shore is. And I don't know if you resonate with this, but I know that we feel this sometimes, right? Here at AMSA, that you're looking around wondering, where is the end? What can I do? Where do I fit into the ecosystem of this? How can I help? And sometimes when that shore doesn't feel clear, we are hoping to be a place that can stay rooted, that can stay firm, and can help one another draw the courage and the boldness that's within all of us to foster that sense of belonging for other future clinicians too, that demand more for our patients and for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I will take the baton that has been so beautifully handed over to me from Danya and share a little bit about the historical origination of advocacy in action. And advocacy in action, really, its most initial conversations around this movement began within the past leadership of AMSA after a cohort of American Medical Student Association national leaders attended a health justice conference in Washington, D.C. last January, just a few days after our change in our presidential administration. Our staff and student leaders alike sat around a table, and we felt that fear. We felt that need to find a shore. And we felt that responsibility to not only find that shore for ourselves, but to find and guide our student body to that very same shore as we found ourselves adrift. And we didn't have all the perfect answers. We didn't have the perfect plan to guide ourselves to shore, but we knew that we needed to take action in response to the times that we found ourselves in. And from that conversation, we found ourselves within AMSA's Code Blue movement, and that was led by AMSA's immediate past president, Annalise, who originally envisioned this as being a home for medical students and pre-medical students and health justice allies alike to come together collectively and take action in the acute period of crisis that we found ourselves in last January. And as that movement has grown and as members and leaders alike have engaged with it organically, and as we have learned collectively, we've seen this blossom into the beautiful, advocacy and action movement that we find ourselves in now. And so we want to take a little bit of today to share a little bit of the philosophical praxis and framing of advocacy and action. And we want to affirm that we continue to learn in this moment, and that we invite each and every one of you to learn with and alongside us as we chart that course to our shore together, hand in hand.
Thank you, Nikita. Yes. So why advocacy and action, and why now? Speaking with you about advocacy and action feels perfectly aligned in why we talk about Health Equity Week of Action. It feels perfectly aligned in talking to you about why in this moment, from everything you just heard us speak of, right? And it will likely be relevant for quite some time to come. And that's because the world that we're living in requires our voices. There is, of course, space for us. We are not here to pretend and say that your voice is not valuable if it's not named. Your voice is valuable in every room that you walk into, not just because you're a future physician, but also because you're a person. But naming is also really important, and there's a lot of value to naming. There's a lot of value to saying that in this space, we uplift you, this demographic, right, of pre-medical and medical students who oftentimes are not looked to have a voice in how medicine is created or how it's envisioned, who are oftentimes asked to remain quiet until their power has accumulated to some point where we're in attending or where we have our own practice. And then suddenly, after all that time, after all those years, then you can speak, we're told. Then you can have these strong opinions. Then you can be emboldened because then you are safe. I don't want to pretend like we are not focused on building this advocacy strategically, because we are. We do understand that as much as we don't want it to be, that is a lot of times the world that we are living in medicine. We do need to be strategic. We do need to be smart. But that doesn't have to mean that your voice isn't heard. Your emotions matter, your care matters, and it's mattered this whole time, and that has been evident by the roots of this organization. The question we continue to ask ourselves as we've been building out this vision, and not just the two of us and not just the group that was there at the conference that year. You know, we have so many national leaders and staff that have been so hard at work helping us to think through these things. I see one of them, I think, on the call here. Hi, Adam. But we keep asking ourselves, what side of history will we be on? That is a decision that Nikita and I have been saying over and over to ourselves this week. We ask ourselves that continuously. Yes, it is fearful. Yes, we don't know what that means. Yes, there is an unknown. But just alongside those yeses is the yes that, how do we move forward if we can't speak on this? We do not want to be complicit in a system that harms others, consciously or unconsciously. But the ways that we do see that harm, when we can speak up, we want to find a way to do it safely together. So, our key advocacy priorities. The reason I want to speak about this here now, and Nikita and I chose to include this, hopefully feels, relevant no matter what, but specifically, you might not have seen our advocacy priorities in the past. Maybe they didn't feel visible to you. So seeing things like promoting equal access to healthcare, protecting the rights, safety, and voices of future physicians, safeguarding medical education, and supporting curricular reform. These have been our working priorities. And one of our main new priorities as we build out advocacy and action is ensuring that there is clarity and visibility for the fights that we are fighting together. And that you, as our members, as our leaders, that you feel a part of that conversation. It's not just our voices at national that represent the priorities that you feel on your heart are necessary for us to speak on. So moving forward, what you'll see with advocacy and action, and I don't want to tease too much for the slides to come, but we have an approach that at all moments will integrate back to these advocacy priorities to uplift them in every piece of work that we do. And as we renew and rebrand our priorities in coming years, we will look to our membership, we'll look to you to speak with us. We will ask you and invite you to speak with us about the issues that are settling heavy on your heart. So as I just mentioned, this is our foundational framework: visibility, clarity, and these three pillars. This pillared approach felt extremely important to us because education, advocacy, and community are three of the primary tenets that we felt most spoke to what we wanted to provide to you as a safe harbor. There are, of course, so many things that we hope to provide to you, but these three spheres, what they encompass for us, which we'll talk more about in the coming slides, is a clear, condensed way to show you where our work is going, what our work is working on, and where you can see yourself in those visions clearly. Whether you have interests and gifts that you want to embody and show us in any of these avenues and these lanes, you can see yourself more clearly in that ecosystem. You can say, I want to build out my ability to be involved in medical education. I want to build out my ability to work on tangible skill sets and advocacy. I want to work on connecting with more peers and like-minded people. And we hope that as you see yourself in these pillars, you'll see yourself not only in the pillars here at AMSA, but in the larger framework of the body of medicine that we are hoping to rebuild together overall. I'm plugging here our action committees as well. Not sure how much you might know about them depending on where you're tuning in from or where your knowledge base is on AMSA, but at the close of this session, we'll also show you how you can get more involved in these action committees, which are issue-specific groups that work to uplift our priorities through their particular lenses. So, Pillar 1. What does education mean in the framework of advocacy and action, and what does it mean in the framework of HEWA? Knowledge is needed to affect systemic change. We know that. But there's so much knowledge for us to grasp out in the world, especially with everything that's happening right now, rapidly, all the changes that are occurring in our landscape. We're hoping that in this pillar, in this part of advocacy and action, we can frame a different type of curriculum, not just focused on health policy, which is of course what we want to ensure you know more of, like what do these HR1 cuts mean? How do they affect the patients that you're seeing in the clinic? You know, what does this mean in the real world for us when we don't get these types of exposures and time to do that in our courses in medical school or in our pre-medical coursework? But also, something that our AMSA Academy does beautifully and that we're bringing more strongly into our framework alongside our MedEd Action Committee is the idea of liberatory education. This means human rights, social justice, looking at the world with a multidisciplinary lens. We get a lot of science and we love science, but what we lack oftentimes is that socio-political, anthropological lens, studying people, studying behavior, studying our ecosystems of care. We can't learn that all in the coursework that we're given to become physicians. So this demands something more from us. So this pillar will be dedicated, and look at me, I'm just talking away, will be dedicated towards building an educational approach that focuses on that human rights and social justice framework alongside the health policy changes that you deserve to know about.
And, you know, we want to name here that as we look forward to taking action together, as we look forward to doing the work of advocacy, as we look at our, you know, state and federal legislatures, I think oftentimes we can look at bills that are being proposed and policies that are being adopted that don't reflect the type of radical change that we wish to see in this world. And that the policy options that are on the table are not a reflection of what is possible. It's a reflection of the intentionally suppressed political will of the people who hold power in our legislatures and also within our institutions, within our hospital systems, and within our medical education spheres. And as we think about education and knowledge production, I'm sure all of us as future physicians have heard the adage that knowledge is power. And it is power because it is liberating. Through knowledge, we can adopt worldviews and entertain changes to the structures of our world that, you know, may not be actively contemplated by leadership within our legislatures or within our House of Medicine, but can still be something that we as students insist upon and demand. And so we hope that through this human rights pedagogy and approach to education that that you can feel truly empowered to demand more from your leaders and to demand more from our systems.
Thank you so much, Nikita. Beautiful. And on that, as we build from education, we look at advocacy. what does advocacy mean? This has been something that I've really been sitting with, especially through the position that I've been serving in, right? That we look at advocacy and we think, by definition, that means to publicly endorse or speak out against any issue that matters to you, right? Any issue that you're being educated on. But at its core, that concerted action has to be rooted in a multidisciplinary framework of education and, what we'll get to soon, of community. If we don't feel comfortable using our voices for very clear and obvious reasons, for valid reasons, if we don't know, if we haven't had the experience to know what it looks like to call in to our senators, to schedule appointments, to meet with them, to advance a bill that we care about, if we're not given the opportunity to know, how do I even take action? Where do I begin at any stage? Whether this is the first time I've ever looked at making an appointment with that senator, whether it's the first time that I've ever thought to look at a sign-on letter, or whether I have been storming the hills of the Hill for quite some time, advocacy can mean something different to all of us. So what we're hoping to build here within this pillar and within this sphere is confidence and safety and security, where we work on skill building in concrete and tangible ways that make you feel more able to speak up and out about the issues that matter to you. And it's important that, as this last line that actually I want Nikitha to speak to as well, but we say beyond dialogue and into tangible change. We can talk about it all the time, and we will, but what can we do together to move the thread forward? Dialogue is important, but at a certain point, dialogue does not cease ever, but must be in addition to action. So this looks like a few things. You're in it right now, actually. HEWA has been spread to so many different groups, and it clearly stating the things that we're working on throughout this programming, what we're uplifting. That is a form of advocacy. Some of the rapid response elements that you saw from us last fall, that is a form of advocacy. Learning how to call into your senator, that is a form of advocacy. So there are so many things that we hope to build with you in relation to HEWA and beyond in the coming years.
Absolutely. Our advocacy pillar is really what we've envisioned as a commitment and a vow of our organization to not stop with dialogue, to not stop with education, to not stop with building a beloved community around the work that we hope to put forward in this world, but to say that we will affect change and that we will construct a system that is more equitable and just for all, and that we will achieve this.
Yes. And our last pillar for now, community. So what does community, I heard your little laugh, I love it. What does community mean to us? Community is this. Community is each of you. Community is fostering spaces intentionally with this new arm that's dedicated, like that lighthouse, shining the light into the dark, or standing firm and visible in the light of day, that says, we are here, we care for you, we want to know you, and we wish for you to know us. That is solidarity. And we believe at AMSA that safety builds when we can see that in one another. When we see our power compound, as Nikitha says so beautifully, I've heard them say this many times recently, that collective power can compound when we're together. We don't have to worry about the individualistic approach, because it's all scary, but that's extremely scary, right? That visibility of just one person. But what we are offering in the pillar of community is reviving our sense of shared purpose in a new way, building human connection with one another. So mostly what this looks like is unstructured hours where we gather. You've maybe attended some of them already since December, where we come together, where we reflect and process the world that we're living in, where we seek friendship, where we seek care through just the mutual witnessing of what we are facing in this world. And not just that, but what it means to be a medical student in this world, what it means to be a person in this world right now. That vulnerability enhances our regulation, our nervous system regulation as people, which allows us to be better students, which allows us to be better advocates, and which allows us to show up in the body of medicine in the way that we hope to, in alignment with our values. But everything starts from within. So, speaking of starting from within, we'll spend a few moments talking about a foundational approach to advocacy, philosophical understandings of the stories of self, us, and now. We talked about this on Advocacy Day last year, if you were present. And if you weren't, not to worry, plugging our convention in December, which you'll hear more about. Where do we see ourselves within the sphere of the understanding of us in this present moment and in our futures? I want to take a moment for us to read this quote. And I'm going to read it to us. Action by a physician to promote, this is defining physician advocacy. Action by a physician to promote those social, economic, educational, and political changes that ameliorate the suffering and threats to human health and well-being that he or she or they identify through his or her or their professional work and expertise. We cannot eliminate suffering in the world, but we can respond to it. And that is what we believe HEWA is working to do. That is what we believe Advocacy in Action is working to do. We know we can't take it all away, but when we name it with clarity, when we name and uplift the populations that are being marginalized, that are being oppressed, when we center their voices, when we share their stories, when we share our feelings and our emotions and our experiences and what we want to demand to see to be better, and what we're going to do about that, we alleviate suffering by naming it. We address suffering by naming it. And that is one of the beautiful parts of being a physician. So here, we'll spend a few moments, and these slides will be shared with you. So you'll have time to go through the images that will move through this evening. We want to make sure we leave time for anything that you'd like to share with us too. But this slide is these coming slides are extremely important to us as we center on the right and the responsibility that we have to co-create the world that we envision. This brings us back to something we shared earlier, that oftentimes as a medical student or a student in general or a pre-medical student, we are told, wait, not yet. Don't share anything yet. Don't look at the world, yes, but don't take it in and don't respond to it, because this is not your time to do that. It is not your moment. But it is always your moment to see and judge and act, again, in the confines of that safety. Paulo Freire advocated for the student-centered method of liberatory teaching, asking his students, and also now looking at us as medical students, as pre-medical students, as if you're tuning in and you're a resident, wherever you are in your medical journey, that we are allowed to have a critical consciousness. We are allowed to look and peer out into the world and to question the systems that preserve injustice, that allow it to go unchecked. We are allowed to have a problem with that. We are allowed to judge it. We are allowed to make judgments. We cannot be told that we are not prepared or old enough or experienced enough to not be okay with a social system that is broken. And we can do what we can to act together, to mobilize, to respond to the things that we can. This embodied self-leadership is a lot of what we're talking about here tonight. Professor David Orr shared this many years ago, and we'll link all of the readings if you didn't get a chance to see them before. But this idea of the head, heart, and hand method for advocacy and change fully embodies what we are speaking of tonight and what we're hoping to bring into HIWA. Yes, strategic planning and intellect is vital. Yes, critical reflection is vital. Do it, feel it, know that you deserve to do it and feel it. But at the same time, to fully have implementation, for that hand part to work, for you to make that true systemic change, we need to also bring in the heart, that emotional intellect, the storytelling, not just of each of us here at AMSA, but of community members, right? Uplifting patient stories, immersing ourselves in the groups and in the communities in which we hope to serve. That praxis has to be led by both our hearts and our minds, by both our community and our education, to truly effect that advocacy change. And one of our favorite quotes from Holocaust survivor, psychiatrist, and neurologist, Viktor Frankl, the late Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. When we think of embodying self-leadership, we think of the power of choice. Choice feels attacked at every corner right now. But we're here to remind you that there is a space between this incredible amount of stimuli that we are receiving right now and the response that we craft together. And we hope to be a part of that middle space with you, to dream with you, to be angry with you, to grieve with you, and to celebrate the wins that we will have and that we are having in places all around the world as we speak. Resistance is happening, resistance is here, and we'll build it more together. I hope you'll take some time after tonight in your very busy schedules to look at where your energy is. I love looking at this chart because it shows us that sometimes in the world, it's okay to feel like hope feels distant. You might find yourself, these are labeling words. We don't always want to use them, but just for the thought processes of this evening, think, do I feel apathetic towards certain things because I'm feeling numb or disconnected or disassociated, all of which are valid experiences? Am I doubting myself so heavily that I can't move, that I can't mobilize? Do I feel paralyzed? Am I isolating because of this pain and this confusion? Am I scared? Have I lost the will to keep pushing in this fight? We want to validate all of these emotional experiences and know that your energy is in that space. You care. And so when energy gets stuck, when energy can't be mobilized and it can't move and it doesn't know where to go, it stays stagnant. And while that is okay, and again, valid and affirmed, together, we can look at the emotions that we sometimes have been socialized to fear, like anger. Anger can actually be an extremely positive emotion. It's what has gotten us a lot done in the past. Anger can be the root of the protests that we see, but also at the root of that is love. So noting that wherever our energy might be, together we can work to channel it and to move it towards something that feels meaningful. Storytelling is a huge practice of this. When we talk about liberation work, liberation education, frameworks of liberation in general, human rights agendas, it values words, blah, blah, blah. It's centered on the idea that the public narrative is a part of the self narrative, that we have to see ourselves and us as like, let's say, our group and our community within that larger public sphere. So we use the three-pronged approach that we talked about. We use the head, the heart, and the hand. We use advocacy, education, and community. And we understand that as we face challenges like that image shows you in the far left corner, when there is a challenge that we face and a moral choice to make there, right? There's a, what do we do next? Where is the energy going and moving? How can we work with storytelling and uplifting communities where we can come together and ask, how am I meeting my values in this moment? At this choice point that I'm at, how can I bring my future actions or my current actions into alignment with the truth that I want to uplift? We hope to help you with that here at AMSA, both this week and beyond. This is another image to provide us a sense of what it looks like to develop this public narrative. You see on the left-hand corner the story of self. I love this one, and it catapults as we look at the story of us. But what I want to draw our attention to is asking ourselves, why do we care? Because care is at the center, at the core of many of these emotions that we are experiencing. It bothers us so deeply because we care. We're enraged because we care. Among all the issues that we could have chosen in the world, why did we decide to work in medicine? We have to bring ourselves back to our why as often as we can, as intentionally as we can, especially right now. And then we continue to use that as the foundational springboard to look at how we can make those changes in the story of us and in the story of now, and meeting that urgency that we talked about at the beginning of our time together as well. Meeting the moment with urgency, meeting the moment with hope, meeting the moment with community. We love this quote from Representative John Lewis. We uplift it at every presentation that we can. This is our practice, this is our value, this is our reflection, these are our actions. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have to speak up. You have to say something. You have to do something. You must find a way to get in the way and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. We hope that you will get into good trouble with us this week and every day thereafter. And the preacher said, I do. I guess it wouldn't be the preacher, it would be people getting married. Anyways, I'll pause here. Nikita, my dear, anything you'd like to add as we go into our schedule for the week?
No, that is perfect. And moving right off of that, this is why we are so elated to share with you our slate of daily themes and our praxis and our orientation towards our Health Equity Week of Action. Danya, if you want to talk through some of these themes and kind of how programming is going to evolve over the course of these few days.
Yes, thank you so much. So please take a moment to scan that QR code if you haven't already. Well, you probably have because you're here, but to go to our website and to look at a full list of what's happening each day. But here you are today on Monday. Thank you so much for being here with us. We will actually be going straight into session 2, which we will have the incredible Skylar Rossellini from the National Health Law Program in California speaking to us about the devastating HR cuts. On Tuesday, we see moral distress and institutional harm, and you can see the list of speakers for each of these events, but we'll be focused on understanding what it means to be let down by a system of care and what we can do to respond to that care and care for one another. On Wednesday, we'll be lifting up reproductive justice. On Thursday, we'll have key activists from Doctors Against Genocide and anti-ICE trainings for what to do in our hospital systems. And also we'll have the Health in Partnership coming to speak with us about immigration justice. And on Friday, we will have the Committee of Interns and Residents and the Committee to Protect Healthcare coming to speak with us about what it means to strengthen our collective voice. Each evening, including tonight, at the end of every session, so tonight it's at 8 p.m. Eastern, we will have a community building hour, a chance to connect and grow together. Thank you, Beth.
Yes, and so with all of what we have talked through today, we want to invite you into our community, our AMSA community, in a couple of different ways. This slideshow will be presented at the end of every HEWA programming session and will be sent out after the fact. So if you don't get a chance to scan a QR code just yet, it'll be there waiting for you on the other side. But We want to invite you into our membership. If you're not already a member, we encourage you to scan that QR code and sign up to be to continue being a part of this community as you already are. And just like we have mentioned, if you feel that you have resonated with what you have heard today, if you feel like the vision that has been outlined for the future of medicine is something that you have been hungry for and have been craving, and it's something that you want to take a larger role in, we would be overjoyed and thrilled to have you within our national leadership. We have several leader opportunities open right now. So if you scan that second QR code, you'll get access to a list of different opportunities that you can sign up for, apply to, and leverage to take action with our organization, as you already are, as you've already started today. And then just like Danya had mentioned with regard to our annual Future Physicians for Change conference, our annual convention will be taking place this December 10th through 12th in the DC metro area. If you are wanting to dip your toes into the field of legislative advocacy, and if you are wanting to speak face to face with your legislators, with your representatives, and speak truth to power, we want to invite you into that experience. Every FP4C conference, we open up our programming with our inaugural Advocacy Day, and we want to invite you into that experience. So if that's something that you're interested in, we invite you to scan the QR code and sign up for future updates, and make sure that you stay involved so we can ensure that you're part of that movement in DC.
Thank you so much, Nikita. Yes, my friends, and use that code HEWA2026 for 15% off of a 4-year membership. Guys, thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and we're going to take a moment. Would love to hear from you if you have anything you'd like to share, and then we'll move into our second session of the evening. Thank you so much, and welcome to Health Equity Week of Action. Hello. Okay. Let me pause this recording, my friends. Stop recording. Okay. And now, how is everyone doing? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's get everything queued up.